Oh, no.
Hello and welcome to Podcats.
Let's just go around and talk about our thoughts about the book first.
My thoughts.
Should we one person ask how do you feel when you read the book, that kind of things, and then we can just talk about our own experience.
What stood out to you?
Guys, I don't feel anything.
Well, one thing that definitely stood out was all of the biblical allusions.
Yeah.
Every single thing is a biblical allusion.
Yeah, what stood out to me was reading the book was extremely difficult, but it kind of reflects how, everything in that book and everything that they experience, all the characters, everything that they have to do, is difficult. And I think, once you go through all those difficulties, you get to the good stuff. And after, reading so much classification about whales and, the boring stuff about anatomy and, the boring stuff about, the stupid stuff that's in their digestive system that you have to know. But, you have to go and read all that stuff to really understand the book, to really understand on a deeper level, I think.
And you said, he rewrote the book for an entire year.
Yeah, he rewrote it for an entire year. Mostly Hamlet, though. Yeah. Because Ahab... Yeah, if you look at Sunset...
Really? I see Ahab as kind of more Macbeth.
Yeah,
with
me
the whole,
too.
going insane. It's not so much as Hamlet where it's, an act. It's no, Ahab's literally going insane in his search for...
He actually says, I am crazy, but I'm a crazy evil person.
Yeah. While Macbeth was looking for power, Ahab is looking for revenge.
Yeah, exactly. Ishmael was funny. He's a funny character. He's so philosophical and, he reflects on everything when he's alone, but when he talks to other characters, he's a little wimp that's, scared of everything.
He is a wimp. He's never gone whaling before, and all of a sudden he's got all these chapters in his book on what whaling is.
I know. And his best friend's a cannibal. Let's talk about
And what is that guy's name? Stubb?
Stubb. Yeah. Stubb is interesting.
He's one of my favorite characters in here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at the beginning when I read that Queequeg was a cannibal.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he says he'd rather be best friends or, sleep with a cannibal than sleep with a drunk Christian.
Oh, wow.
What does that mean?
Actually
What does that mean?
I would be afraid to be friends with a cannibal.
Yeah.
It actually really...
Actually, I'd rather be friends than enemies with a cannibal.
That is true.
But
Yeah.
it's weird that he described the narrator and Queequeg's relationship husband and wife.
It's
just so
broest
weird.
moment. It's the I like your hair, no homo, bro.
Yeah.
I feel I
I love
thought I
their
was reading
friendship.
some kind of weird story.
I know.
It was really weird, and I don't even know what to make of that chapter.
They clicked right from the start.
They have a really close bond between each other.
I know. And it's kind of sad, the whole, book, Ishmael is, worrying about Queequeg because he's so just really influenced by his religion, and he says, his religion isn't, real and that he's not going to be saved and stuff because he's, he has this, idol that he had to, hold up for so long.
And he cannot eat or talk or something for so long, and then he's lock himself in the room, and then Ishmael thought he's suicide or something.
I know.
I feel when it comes to Queequeg, Ishmael is very white supremacist.
Yes.
In the sense that he thinks
from his self-thought.
and it's not just in the sense of religion. Everyone thinks their own religion is right. He's very white supremacist in the sense of he kind of copies the ideals of that time, which is colonialism, and whites are better than everyone else. Everyone else is savages.
I know.
Full on Pocahontas.
Totally
I also like how everyone on the ship kind of doesn't really judge each other on their race and their ethnicity and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because when it comes to
Indians
whaling,
from where is that?
There's black people.
Yeah, and then just
Indians.
Different ethnic groups,
And
they all get along.
Yeah, and they all have different backgrounds.
But Ahab just a mystery. He always just show at the beginning he barely show up.
Yeah.
There are many biblical allusions in Moby Dick, and each of them have their own related biblical symbolism and stories. For example, Father Maple. He was once a harpooner, but he now is a famous preacher and being respected. In the earlier chapters of the story, he gave sermon on the story of Jonah and the whale. Basically, Jonah was trying to run away from God's ruling by getting on a ship to somewhere across the world, but he died in the whale's belly to save the people on the ship and to accept God's punishment because of his disobeying. Peter Coffin is one of those characters with biblical symbolism too. He is an innkeeper, non-Christian, and his name can be considered as a foreshadowing of death, since coffin is a term related to death. Queequeg, the son of a king. He is a harpooner from New Zealand. As he dives more into Christian society, he became more savage in his own culture, which is very ironic. Fidela, secret first mate and personal bodyguard to Captain Ahab, can be considered as Satan or demon in the story, an evil character. Ishmael is the narrator and one of the main characters in the story. He is an experienced sailor, but he has never tried whaling before, and that's why he goes on this whaling ship to adventure. Ahab is the main character and the captain of the ship. He is really obsessed with Moby Dick, the whale that bit off his leg. He is really mean and can be considered as a dictator on the ship. Additionally, he can be compared to Hamlet, knowing his own madness and obsession with Moby Dick but still lost control. Elijah, he is a crazy hobo who gives mysterious message to Ishmael warning about Ahab. He can be considered as the prophet in the story. The more he tells, the more ominous the atmosphere is. Gabriel, sailor that attends to prophesy doom and destruction if they kill Moby Dick. He is a shaker and a great prophet, announced himself as Archangel Gabriel.
Because many of the characters in Moby Dick have biblical names, it's important to know who were the original owners of those names in the Bible, and why are they so important to be named after them? Ishmael was the first son of Abraham, born by his wife's handmaiden in an attempt to fulfill God's promise of a new nation, which, by the way, was supposed to come from his wife Sarah. Then Sarah finally had a son named Isaac, who was to be the true heir. Islamic traditions consider Ishmael to be one of the fathers of their religion. The conflict between Ishmael and Isaac is the main cause of the conflict between Islam, Jews, and the ownership of the Holy Land today. Thanks, Abraham. Ahab was the 7th king of Israel since Jeroboam I, and the husband of Jezebel, a pagan woman who led him to worship pagan gods. He is considered one of the most evil, as he, quote, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. 1 Kings 16:30. He also was rivaled by the prophet Elijah, who warned him to turn from his evil deeds. That sounds a lot like the warning about Ahab that Elijah gives to Ishmael in chapter 19 of Moby Dick. Elijah was a holy prophet. In 1 Kings, Elijah defended God in a land where everyone else worshipped Canaanite deity Baal. God also performed many miracles through Elijah, the most famous ones being raising the dead, setting fire to a soaking wet altar, and being one of the few people not to die. Elijah was brought up into heaven in a fiery whirlwind. In Luke chapter 1, Gabriel appears to Mary, the soon-to-be mother of Jesus, as an angel of the Lord, Luke 1:11. Gabriel is supposed by some to be an archangel, but everyone generally agrees that he is a popular messenger of God. While the Gabriel in Moby Dick certainly might not have been considered so popular, he definitely attempts to deliver some messages from God. The last two names are Bildad and Peleg. Bildad was one of Job's 3 friends who visited the patriarch in the book of Job, while Peleg is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible as one of the 2 sons of Eber, an ancestor of the Israelites. It looks like the characters are just about as important as their biblical counterparts, which is to say, not very.
In Ahab's soliloquy, he states of himself, "'Tis iron that I know, not gold. 'Tis split too that I feel. The jagged edge galls me so. My brain seems to beat against the solid metal. I, steel skull, mine, the sort that needs no helmet in the most brain-battering fight." By this, he acknowledges that he is split from God, head full of rage, recognizing himself as demonic, with the sole purpose to kill Moby Dick. In other words, be superior to God himself. This alludes, in some ways, to Hamlet with the same question of, is he crazy or is it all an act? He realizes himself as crazy, and only sane people know what that truly means. It is the really mental that cannot distinguish fact from fiction. Can he really be crazy if he knows he is? This theme of insanity is carried on into chapter 93, when Pip gets frightened and jumps into the water but becomes entangled in the fishing line. Stubb chooses to save him and lose the whale, but swears to not save his life should he jump again. However, becoming scared again, he jumps. Stubb holds true to his word and leaves him there. Another boat rescues him, but he is never quite the same. His body was preserved, but his mind is described as not drowned entirely. So man's insanity is heaven's sense, and wandering from all mortal reason, man comes at last to that celestial thought, which to reason is absurd and frantic, and weal or woe feels then uncompromised, indifferent as his God. His insanity is not questionable like Ahab's. It is true, frantic, half-drowned, heaven-sent insanity. Though Ahab could be considered insane, he is no less evil. Said in earlier chapters, he ain't Captain Bildad, no, and he ain't Captain Peleg. He's Ahab, boy, and Ahab of old, thou knowest was a crowned king. This man implies that because the famous Ahab was a king, then Captain Ahab is respectable as well, to which Ishmael replies, and a very vile one. When that wicked king was slain, the dogs, did they not lick his blood? He is asking whether or not the cruelty of the famous king is also applied to Captain Ahab as well.
For the allusions and metaphors, a lot of them relate to the biblical references or biblical verses or biblical morals. For instance, Fidela and Starbuck, they are total opposites, but they seem to be the devil on board versus the angel on board. Fidela being the devil and Starbuck being the moral influence for Ahab, which contributes to Ahab's ambiguity. For the second one, Ishmael advises man to be like a whale, as a whale is warm among ice, saying, you should live in the world, but not be of it, which kind of alludes to the Bible verse where God is saying, you're born of the world, but do not be of the world. And then the next one, Ishmael compares the sun to the only true lamp, which is Jesus, and then he says, to not turn your back on the compass, calling it God's guidance. And then he explains in the Triworks chapter that the harpooners who are like burning whale blubber, they are near the fire, and he's saying fire is evil, stay away from fire, fire is Satan. And by this message it's saying that Ishmael is saying like you need to or cut that out. Ishmael is kind of alluding to the verse, you're a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. The next one, he does a lot of arguments. Cut that out too. In the Triworks chapter, he also alludes to King Solomon, and he quotes a lot of his dialogue in the Book of Solomon, if there's a Book of Solomon, where he's quoting about wisdom. And then there's a lot of allusions to repentance in chapter 98. Whereas they're cleaning up the Triworks and then making a mess again when they see a whale. So he's saying oh, you guys make a mess by sinning, but then you clean it up when you repent, but then you mess up again. That's repentance. And then a lot of the meanings of the names, they mean biblical names and biblical things. So Ishmael means God listens. Ahab means uncle. From Hebrew, it's brother and then father. Elijah means my God is Yahweh. Gabriel means God is my strength. Captain Bildad means old friendship. Captain Peleg means in Israel, being the root lettering for sailing. Also, Peleg is English. In English is brook, a little river.
Yeah, whaling is very different from just sailing, because I heard one character said that in order to whale you need to be a killer yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And Ishmael's not like that. I don't know.
It's not.
But Queequeg is. I can tell he was just right. That was right off his alley. And then I wonder about that, being a killer to kill whales. and then how everybody is kind of like a savage in a way on the boat. You know?
There are a lot of ironic things in the book.
I think that's kind of got to do with, like, a lot of times people consider, like, things that are bigger than humans to be majestic. Like, an elephant, those are considered majestic, and whales are basically elephants in the sea.
Yeah.
So, like, to kill either of those, you're, like, killing this super old being that only gives, like, one child every 5 years. You're killing off a race faster than it's, like, being made. So it's kind of that whole thing about, like, are you ready to kill something that's that special and difficult to come by?
I know, and they're like super huge, and I can't really picture that in my mind.
Yeah.
Like having them like cut open the whale, like what are they doing? How
Like
are they doing
when you
that?
see those photos of Jonah, like, and it's basically like just a giant cave.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, at the beginning of the book, it basically starts out by telling us the story of Jonah and the whale.
Yeah.
But, like, the preacher does it in a more, like, story version than the Bible does. He actually, like, focuses on what the, like, sailors would have thought when they went into the storm. And, like, they had to draw straws to find out, like, who's going to get thrown overboard.
I know.
And it turns out to be Jonah and that sort of thing. And, like, I just thought that was funny because, like, you're talking about this guy who's going to go onto a ship to go find a whale. And you're just going to talk about Jonah and which the ship gets, like, full on swallowed by the whale. I was, like, pretty much expecting Ahab to be swallowed by the whale.
Well,
I mean, it's close enough at the end.
Yeah.
But just kind of that whole thing about, like, God's redemption for Ahab. Like, you know how Jonah was meant to go to Tarshish, or meant to go to Nineveh, but he went to Tarshish instead. So would Ahab going after the whale be considered Jonah going to Tarshish? And, like,
Maybe. It kind of depends on like what the whale means. And in the story of Moby Dick, and the whale in Jonah is more like a transportation kind of thing. But with the whale in Moby Dick, I just like I'm still figuring it out. I'm not sure like what it means.
The way I see it is, like, Ahab going after the whale is the same as how Jonah was running from God.
Yeah.
And
that's what
so
I see.
the one difference is Jonah, like, jumped into the sea to save, like, the other people, but Ahab was selfish the whole time, and that's why while Jonah was saved by the whale, Ahab was brought down with the whale.
Yeah. Kind of
Because
sad.
Ahab never repented.
Whole ships of people's life to help him to
kind of
get
just
Moby Dick.
his fate all along. It's like there's so many characters saying like you're gonna die, Ahab.
Like Elijah at the beginning, and then Gabriel later in the book.
Yeah, Gabriel. They just said like,
And it's always
what
the
are you
crazy
doing?
ones. Like, if we're going with Hamlet again, like
I know.
Ophelia, it's the crazy ones in this book that are saying what.
The crazy one tells the truth.
Yeah.
Ahab did not want to leave it alone. He was just like so determined. And I feel like in a way, he kind of just hated God. Like he hated his
I
fate.
think it's unfair. Why only him is?
Yeah.
Why do you think they were so determined to get Moby Dick?
Well, I think they were under Ahab's influence for one point.
Ahab's is kind of like dictatorship on
Yeah.
boats, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And it talked about how, like, Ahab rallied them in the sense of, like, he gave them a reward for if they did see Moby Dick, but he also, like, threatened them if they weren't able to do it. Like,
Very manipulative.
yeah. And that kind of, like, that plays to his bodyguard being Satan. Like,
I know.
when someone is that far from God that they call his, like, his sidekick Satan.
A little dark cloud looming over him.
Yeah. It's a demon on the shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's
Demon on the shoulder.
do you think Starbuck would be his like little angel in the corner?
Starbuck definitely was, like, the voice of reason.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, what are you doing?
He's like, guys, do you know this is stupid?
Yeah.
Is that how
Basically.
Starbucks name came from? From Moby Dick?
Yeah. They had,
Like the actual store, Starbucks?
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
they
when
had
I-
a place in Nantucket or something. And
When I first read Starbucks name in the book, I'm like,
I mean,
Starbucks.
the logo is a mermaid.
Yeah,
I
it
know.
is. That's why I was thinking, like, are they related? Like, did he pick the name from Moby Dick?
We should have a Moby Dick coffee.
Probably Starbucks is his favorite character in the book.
The Ahab coffee.
19
19 shots of espresso. 19 shots of espresso.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Depending
Oh
on what
my
you sell,
gosh.
depends on the name you pick for it.
Oh yeah, they really should have this series, Moby Dick series.
Of the podcast?
Yeah.
Or we can just do like one.
You should say good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Yeah.
Well, this has been the Podcats. Meow meow. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Everyone say bye.
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 Meow.